Hello, welcome back to the Nook. I'm Daniel, and today I will be reviewing this book here, Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. And it's going to be a bit of a vague review. Again, just like with Return of the King, I finished Rhythm of War a while back. I think this was February, early February. So what's going to help is I'm going to read the description of what the book's about, and that should jog my memory more of what happens in this book, although I do remember a lot now. So I'll just read to you the synopsis just to give you some idea of what this book's about. After forming a coalition of human resistance against the enemy invasion, Dalinar Kholin and his Knights Radiant have spent a year fighting a protracted, brutal war. Neither side has gained an advantage, and the threat of a betrayal by Dalinar's crafty ally Taravangian looms over every strategic move. Now, as new technological discoveries by Navani Khollin's scholars begin to change the face of the war, the enemy faces a bold and dangerous operation. The arms race that follows will challenge the very core of the Radiant ideals and potentially reveal the secrets of the ancient tower that was once the heart of their strength. At the same time that Kaladin Stormblessed must come to grips with his changing role within the Knights Radiant, his Windrunners face their own problem. As more and more deadly enemy fused awaken to wage war, no more Honorspren are willing to bond with humans to increase the number of Radiants. Adolin and Shallan must lead the Coalition's envoy to the Honorspren stronghold of lasting integrity and either convince the Spren to join the cause against the evil god Odium or personally face the storm of failure. Yeah, so I do remember now. There's a bunch of things going on in this story. So like it said, there's this tower, and Navani is a character that she's married to Dalinar. She was married to Dalinar's brother Gavilar. Gavilar was assassinated, you find out in the first book. And she's very much into science. She works with fabrials, which are these things that involve the Stormlight. So there was a bunch of stuff with Navani. I remember mainly with Adolin and Shallan, the young married couple. They go to Shadesmar. So that's kind of the place, it's really hard to describe. Shadesmar, it's like there's like an ocean of beads. And basically it's where the Spren come from. So that's where you meet Adolin's sword, because the swords, the shard blades are all Spren. So they're almost like fairies. So Adolin's sword, Maya, he meets her and she's what's known as a Deadeye. Basically, it's kind of weird, but her eyes, you see her as a person, but her eyes are all scratched out. And so he meets her, and a bunch of stuff happens in Shadesmar, I remember. And in the meantime, Kaladin, of course, he's in Dalinar's army. But what happens is Kaladin, he still has mental health struggles. And what happens is he essentially, in the middle of a battle, he freezes. And this has happened a couple times. So Dalinar relieves him of duty. And that really breaks Kaladin, because he thought he was doing what's right being a soldier. He thought being a soldier was kind of his role. And I think this is the book where, because his father, Lirin, who's a surgeon, Kaladin learned to be a surgeon. Lirin ends up essentially becoming a surgeon at Irithiru, which is, of course, the tower that they've taken over. And Kaladin has no choice but to become a surgeon's, I don't know what apprentice, but working for his dad as a surgeon. And what he realizes in Rhythm of War, in this book, is that he can't stop being a soldier. He has to fight the enemy, which in this case is, of course, the Parshendi. So the war is still going on with the Parshendi. Navani's doing her stuff with science. Adolin and Shallan are dealing with stuff in Shadesmar. Basically, Adolin ends up involving himself in a court case in Shadesmar about the Spren, because basically Spren, I don't know if Spren die when you summon them as a shard blade. It's basically, Spren don't like the idea of being summoned as shard blades because it messes with them somehow. I think they die in Shadesmar. And so Adolin's kind of basically, or they become enslaved. Yeah, that's what happens. They become enslaved to the sword. So Adolin's basically explaining that about Spren and about the swords, and he ends up on trial, and they could possibly just keep him in prison forever. And what happens, because I'm keeping this with some spoilers, my videos from now on are going to have some spoilers, because I realized I can't really keep things spoiler free because it gets too vague. So, I mean, if you really don't want to hear this, you could just leave the video now, but if you want to hear it, it's just basically Adelin's friend Maya, who has been silent up to this time, she starts to talk during the trial when Adelin's on trial about the Spren, and she basically starts yelling things, kind of incoherent words, but she's basically saying that the Spren willingly become slaves to be the sword. The Spren are willingly sacrificing themselves, and it's not like they're being enslaved by cruel humans. And so that kind of turns the tides of his trial. And in the meantime, Shallan, of course, she's a light weaver, and she has these personalities. She has Veil and she has Radiant. But on top of that, Shallan is starting to notice a third form called Formless, which she's trying to hide from. And a lot of this book is Shallan's trying to confront her past. A lot of stuff happened with Shallan's parents in the past. And let me just say, Wind and Truth, which is the book I'm currently reading, I'm almost finished it, you get a major revelation in Wind of Truth about Shallan's parents, which I can get into in my Wind and Truth review soon. But for this book, she's still kind of hiding from her past, kind of not wanting to return to it. And this is the book where she comes back and she basically ends up, at one point in the story, she basically wakes up as Formless, as this other form, and she kind of hides behind this other personality. And Adelin's kind of noticing something's not right. And essentially, she confronts it and realizes that Formless is herself. She's hiding behind this persona called Formless, which is just herself doing her thing. That's basically what's happening throughout the book. Eventually, the tower in Urithiru gets under attack. That's what happens. The tower gets taken over by the Fused. They completely take over it. They start knocking out Radiants. So the Radiants, like Kaladin, start losing consciousness and losing their power. So Kaladin can't fly. And Navani is captive by Raboniel, who's one of the Parshendi singers. And basically, Navani starts acting almost as Raboniel's scientist doing experiments. And Navani's trying to find ways to get free and to free the tower. And you end up finding out a lot of crazy lore where the tower is actually a spren called the Sibling. So the tower is a living entity, and Navani is able to talk to the tower. I mean, it's super confusing. That's the thing with Sanderson, is it's one of those fantasy stories where there's a lot of lore. So the Sibling is basically a living tower, and Navani can talk to it. And basically, the climax of the book is Navani and the Radiants taking back the tower, getting their powers back. And basically, there's a battle with Moash. Moash, of course, was in book 1. I don't know if it was book 1 or 2, where he ends up betraying, trying to kill the king at the time. And he leaves Bridge 4, which was Kaladin's group, and it kind of leaves a hole behind because they care for Moash. And basically, there's a battle with Moash. Moash gets, I think this is the book where he gets blinded, but he's not killed. And he's working basically for Odium. So all of this is leading up to the Contest of Champions that's going to happen in the final book with Odium. And I won't say what happens at the end. Something happens with Odium at the very end. And I'll leave that for you to read. But yeah, that's about all. I mean, the Sanderlanche, the climax at the end, is taking back the tower, reclaiming it. There's the stuff with Adolin, with his trial, and what happens there. And they get back to the real world. And there's just some really great character moments with Shallan and with her personalities and her relationship with Adolin. And yeah, it was just a really good book. I think it's even better than Oathbringer. And I sound like a broken record because I liked Oathbringer better than Words of Radiance. I liked Words of Radiance better than Way of Kings. It's like I keep liking each book more and more. So I'm thinking Wind and Truth is going to be my favorite in the whole series. But I've been talking long enough, so if this sounds like a book you'd like to read, give it a go, but definitely read the first 3 first, of course. And remember to like and subscribe. And remember, you're always welcome at the Nook. Bye.